Academics Podcast. I'm your host, Professor Dr. Leonard Nacke. This is the show where my co-host, Vuga Ibrahimov, and I geek out about the latest AI developments without getting too scientific. We want to be your spot for AI insights that actually matter. So grab a coffee, tune in, and let's chat about why AI isn't the job-stealing monster that everyone thinks it is.
It is. It always
Is
cuts
it?
off. Is it a monster? Is it job stealing? Hey, Vugar, welcome back.
Hey, Leonard.
Another episode here.
Nice to
after
see
the
you.
long weekend in Canada. Nice to see you too. We've been snowed in. There's a lot of snow that came down the last weekend. Yeah, it's like record highs. I don't even know. Like I had to shovel even just to get into the driveway.
Again.
Out of the driveway. Yeah, so much shoveling. It's like this Canadian sayings like if somebody tells you you don't have to do it again if you did a great job the first time, does not apply to Canadian snow, because if you did a great job the first time it's snowing again, you got to do it again. Anyways,
Yes.
yeah, let's chat today about I think we wanted to have a look at Perplexity's deep research. We also saw the news recently. Actually, if I just open that up real quick here, let me just share that with everyone. So this is Perplexity. Let's just make sure that that fits in here. Where are we now? We're gone again. I always manage to make us disappear, don't I? Okay, let's bring
But
you back
appear
somehow.
again.
Yeah, let's make sure. Customize. Here we go. There you are. There's the screen share. How about this? Yeah, this kind of gives us a bit of an overview. Or picture in picture. Look at this. This works too.
Yes, this is even better.
So yeah, one of the things that is all over social media is right now the Grok 3 performance, but we didn't pay the piper. So thanks to Elon just having it all under wraps, we can't access that model unless we would pay for the Premium Plus. But it's definitely quick. I think that's one of the things we can say about that. But the thing that got us more excited this week was the addition of deep research. We chatted about that last week for the deep research in OpenAI, as well as the deep research that you could have done, could have been doing for a long time in Gemini, right? So Gemini, we can go to, actually collapse that. So Gemini, we can now select like all of these different models here, which is kind of cool. So we got the Flash thinking experimental with apps. We got all of these different models available to us now that we didn't used to have, and deep research is of course one of them. And deep research is now also in Perplexity. So in Perplexity, we can now do deep research, such as it gives you auto suggestions, which I always find funny. Write a thesis predicting the state of self-driving by 2030. Just to kind of give an idea of like what can you ask. But of course, one of the interesting things is to ask what's the latest scientific research on X, right? So why don't we do that just for shits and giggles? What's the latest scientific research on, what would you like to know, Vugar? What's the latest scientific research on immigration laws, something like that?
Not this time.
Europe.
I think
No.
the law topics is usually boring. I'm fed up.
So
with
we
that
gotta
topic.
ask it about itself then. What's the latest scientific research on LLMs? Question mark. Give us that. See what the research says here. Let's see what it can give us. Okay, and then it goes on and does its thing again, and you gotta just like wait for it a little bit. But essentially, what happens is it sets up a research plan, and then you can even enable desktop notifications when it's done. But the beautiful thing that we set last time as well is that it is transparent, and it gives us these little steps as it goes through each of the research steps, and it talks to itself. So remember when I chatted about this whole like black box, non-black box idea?
Yes.
And I think that is kind of a nice thing that is happening right now with it. As you can see now, it's kind of it keeps doing its little thing. I'm just going to hide it for a hot second here until it's done. But yeah, this is, I think, one of the things that makes it interesting to see it do its research as it goes through that entire process. And I think, yeah, that's really where we're at right now when we're working with these tools, that it's almost agentic behavior. I think we mentioned that before. It works a little bit almost like an agent, and then it does, it goes through all of these little steps, and it provides a report. Now, this was a pretty general query. I was just asking it a question, but of course, you could do a prompt, and we can talk more about prompting later today. But as you know, this is always the most simplest form of a prompt, is like a query that you put in, as in like, here's my question, give me an answer, and it just goes off.
Yes, and I have a question here as well, Leonard, for you,
Yeah.
which I thought a lot about it. I read a lot from the people on X, on many other platforms, saying that so we have now advanced research features on many LLMs, like they are all called deep research, and it's so all called the same, the deep research, ChatGPT, and now Perplexity, and I am sure that Grok 3 will do the same. So they are doing the same. And
of course,
although we don't have access, we have to pay more, as you said, which I am not going to do that. I already, yes. But anyway, some say that the importance of the prompting techniques will increase. You should be more like expert in prompt engineering in order to get the desired results with these new features. And some say, no, you just need to ask questions, simple questions, and it will do the job. So when you read these messages while it is researching, like the Perplexity, as you see, so although even you do not ask, it says, I have to do the best. I have to, it kind of gives itself prompts, like background prompts.
Talks to itself a little bit. Yeah.
Talks to itself, like what I have to do originally in order to answer our questions. So what do you think? Do you think that we have to become more prompt engineering experts in order to get the best results, or just simple questions will suffice?
I think it's a very interesting question to ask here. I think it's hit or miss.
In your experience.
So for me, it's always you get what you give sort of situation. So if you're not specific enough, you're always accepting the defaults, right? So if you don't want the defaults, then you have to be more precise in the way that you prompt something. And whether or not that's the system prompt, it's providing the context, it's providing more specific goals. Even very often, I find defining a target persona is ultimately super helpful, because often when I do content research or I do a piece, I do it with a specific persona in mind, a specific audience that I want to reach with this. And so a good way to improve any prompt is to just be very specific about who you want to create this knowledge for, so that you can, at the end of the day, you can give that to them and make sure they have a better understanding of the way that it's prepared for them. And this started, very simply with regular type of text prompts, where it was more like, make this readable at 7th grade or 9th grade level, right? Like this is usually the thing that we add as academics, because we have a hard time saying things in simple terms. So that kind of stuff. If you're doing a more sophisticated prompt, you might add constraints such as output measures, as in this is how many words, whether or not you want it to use more bullet points or headings, subheadings, things like that. So I think, like, in terms of formatting, it's super helpful. Otherwise, yeah, like in this case, let me just open that image again so that you can see what it came up with here with our sort of default prompt. You can see that pretty much it did prepare a little bit of a research report, which is the default for when you do a deep research kind of query. And it even gives it like a title and does a little colon, just like what you would do in an academic paper. And then it breaks it down and it just like titles each of its little paragraphs quite nicely. And then gives you a bit of an overview, subheadings of what's happening, and it references everything, which is kind of nice. And
when you hover over it, you also see without clicking.
Yeah, you see where it's coming from, and in this case, you see that a lot of it's pulled from the same sources, which is I guess okay, but definitely there's an over focusing on this semi-wiki at the beginning anyways, and then it kind of breaks down a little bit more. But in theory, it is answering the query in the best way possible, because it is giving us an overview of efficiency and scaling in LLM architecture. That's definitely something that's happening. Scaling is super important, as you know, from a lot of the things that we've seen from OpenAI, from anyone that's building a frontier model, as these are called, even Grok, right? Like they're running an investment round to get billions of dollars because scaling is important for them. Grok, I think, wants to beat everyone in terms of speed. So that's really important for them. They want to provide the same output, but faster, more efficient. So that's an interesting thing to watch. And then you get sort of the domain-specific applications here, where it says, okay, it's looking into healthcare. It's looking into autonomous systems and robotics. And I think that'll be the biggest thing for us as we see these models scale and we see, okay, like robotics is really improving, and it'll be an all of a sudden kind of moment, because we've seen these little robot dogs and whatnot from Boston Dynamics for a long time, and they've even been memes and whatnot about them falling over and stuff like that. But all of a sudden, they're just going to be like human-like, and you're going to be like, what just happened? And it's literally because the intelligence, the system, the sensor recognition, everything that's happening inside of the robot actually got replaced with a better model. And that will be a big aha moment. And I think it'll probably be a military application or something like that, sadly, because that's where a lot of money is being put into this type of research. But yeah, you definitely have something happening there in terms of what's happening in the robotics front. And then, as you might be aware, the legal and regulatory applications is kind of interesting to see as well, where you get sort of more interesting analysis features for auditing, for contract analysis and stuff that takes humans a long time. As you know, being in the legal field yourself, there's a lot of vetting, time-intensive vetting of things, and like cross-matching with laws and applications like that. And so AI is, of course, really good at that, right? Like they're really good at these types of lookups and match tasks. And so I can definitely see there being a killer application there. I don't know if you know this Latte Review.
Yes,
as a site there, but yeah,
I know
so that's definitely interesting. And then this is interesting for anyone doing user experience stuff, synthetic data and training paradigms. This is something we kind of laughed at a year from today. Like literally a year ago, there was this thing called synthetic users, and everyone's just like, no, this is stupid. And I still think that's not the real thing. But what we're starting to see is people getting really good at telling an LLM to act like a user and then to study it as if it were that user. So we're entering into an interesting era of synthetic experience analysis. And then the question will be, and I think that's currently what's being figured out, is how close does that get to the real thing? Because now you're just simulating an experience from a synthetic user. And is that going to be the same as studying a real user? And to what degree will we miss nuances? Nuance, the wonderful word that ChatGPT likes to use.
Yes.
In what way will we use nuances as we do that? So I think for user experience professionals, that's a very interesting thing that's happening right now, when you're just like, okay, you can simulate some of that stuff. What does that actually mean in terms of making judgment and data? It's definitely not the real thing, and I don't think it can ever be. But like, how many decisions can be simulated like that? And so that's an interesting thing to get in there. So it kind of captured all of those things. I think trend-wise, this is a pretty good thing. Domain-specific applications captured really like the domains that it was in, and then this whole synthetic data training data ideas, I think, also really interesting. I don't know if you've tried Phi 4, but let me see if I can. I don't know if you've ever tried LM Studio. Let me just see if I can pop that up here.
Is it from which one? Which studio do you mean? So many.
It's called
Googles?
LM Studio.
No.
Let me just see if I can share that real quick with you so you get an idea.
The studio I tested is from Google, which is, we talked about, I think, a couple of sessions
this is
ago.
called, this is a software that you can
one.
run on your computer, LM Studio. And here you can download models, right? So you can see I downloaded Llama. You can download all the open source models. So I downloaded Llama, I downloaded DeepSeek, I downloaded an Instruct version of it and a QuenB distillation of DeepSeek, just to kind of see which one. And you can see how big they are. So you need to have at least 5 gigs or 40 gigs if you do the Llama Instruct one, which I think is probably the best you can run locally on your computer. And it will really get your computer to its knees. And as you can see, I tried actually chatting with a PDF, which was not very successful. But you can ask these things. So let's load the big one. And then
it basically used the physical power of your computer.
It uses, exactly, it uses your computing power. So you can tell it how many tokens you want it to use. And this actually crashed my computer last time, so I got to be careful here. But if you give it too many tokens, it'll just hog all of your resources, and that's a little bit much.
And CPU,
and then CPU threads, and you can set up each of these, and you can even do a Flash model version. But yeah, let's keep this pretty low for now, so I don't get kicked out of the stream. And as you can see, it will load it up here. So there's that little loading bar. And then you can just ask it local questions without ever going onto the internet. And you can add a little difference between a user prompt and an assistant prompt. So this is like different prompting strategies that you can add in there. But if we, for example, if I went back and copied something like, oh no, I wanted to show you Phi. Did I actually download?
But do you use your API? No, you just download.
Okay, so Phi, you'd have to download. You go to Discover, and then you can download Phi. I'm not going to do that because it's 9 gigs, and that'll take us a while. But if you wanted to download Phi 4, you can download it here. And as you can see in some of these things in terms of like tokens and what it does. So this is a model that I actually haven't installed yet, so I might as well just get out of this LM Studio for a sec. But Phi is essentially one that allows you to do mathematical questions really well, that where a lot of the other tools just don't add up the same way or don't deliver in the same way. So when it says Phi 4 team posits that you have a knowledge scaffold and stuff like that, that's essentially because Phi 4 is in competition with the Llama model in terms of the open source model. And so that's, I think, the stuff that was highlighted here. So that's an interesting thing to look at. And then just to kind of looking at what are the key trends. It's efficiency-driven architectures, precision optimized training, domain-specific adaptation in healthcare and robotics. We talked about that. And then cautious integration of synthetic data. I think we did mention that. I think what Anthropic was doing for Claude 3.5 is essentially train it on Claude 3 Opus data. So you train it on synthetic data. And I think we saw the same thing in the strategies with DeepSeek and trying to get DeepSeek to be trained on more synthetic data than real data. So yeah, that's the thing here that you can do, but that's the research in a nutshell quickly.
Yes, access to other models here, which is, I think.
Yeah, you can, of course, you can do Pro Search if you're paying for the Pro version, which I am here.
Yes.
You can do the Pro Search and you can do reasoning, and you can get reasoning with O3 Mini. And I think OpenAI is even now discussing whether or not O3 Mini is going to be open source or not. And that'd be an interesting thing to see if they open source that model, what that would mean for running things locally. And I think this is the interesting thing, for people that are afraid that everything's just sitting in the cloud. Like, what if you ran it locally? Because again, I think what happened here with Perplexity is they just did their own implementation of deep research, just like the one we talked about in the last episode of our podcast. And they just kind of, made it work for them. That it's just the algorithm essentially that it's just doing a sort of a deep search on the web and arguing with it. So it's almost just agentic behavior, which is kind of cool. And I do like that you can refine it by telling it to look for different sources here. So I can always splice in the academic sources if I wanted to focus more on that, and I'll get more citations to papers, even though most of them come from Semantic Scholar. But yeah, that's definitely something that's in there.
So that's Perplexity. So I think this for today's episode, I think the Perplexity is something that we discussed. And if you just listen, please go to our YouTube channels as well in order to see what we have done. Sometimes I think it is necessary to see and to listen at the same time. And so I will definitely check it more. I tested more, so I am planning to do a video again, kind of small tutorial on how to. But you now gave me another idea, like LM Studio, how you can just install and use. I will definitely consider that as well. But yeah, I think now we see more that all these tools trying to come up something more deep, and they all called this feature like deep research. They just want to show that now our tools can do more job for you. But I still believe that, as you said, I am in the same line with you, that prompting still very important. You just cannot ask a very trash question and expect a very nice, beautiful answer to your question. So even a simple word matters. Especially, I tested this feature with a lot of GPTs, like customized GPTs on ChatGPT, and now with the projects. And in my case, projects is doing better than GPTs. That is interesting.
In Claude, like the Claude project?
No, I mean on ChatGPT.
In ChatGPT, the project. Okay,
yes.
Gotcha.
The projects I trained, that I gave customized instructions, and I gave same customized instruction to the GPT, the customized GPT I trained there. The project is doing better. I don't know why, and I still don't understand why. But so I'm going to cover that. Maybe we can also cover that one to test and to ask exactly the same question and to see how it performs. Maybe that could be an idea for our next episodes. But in my case, what is important, even the background prompting, like when you give this customized instructions to them, you have to be very detailed there as well. Not only the prompts you just ask, not only the question just ask. If you train a GPT, or if you let's say create a project, you have to be very, I think, detailed with your instructions as well, which is running in the background. You don't see that always with your each question. And I think I definitely agree with you that the prompting still very important feature. If you are thinking if it is worth to learn it or not, it is. We need. I think prompting is like asking a question. In real life, it is very similar to the real life. If you ask us smarter questions, and you will get better answers as well. And some even say that asking the accurate question is even more important than finding the answers, because if you can ask the good question to the LLMs, they will definitely deliver. That the language, the persona you create there, the tone of language, the audience you want the ChatGPT or other AI tool to address, all these minor details definitely affect the answer. And so I think for today's,
I think this is one of the things. Let me just pop that up. I don't know if you've seen that.
Yes.
Where it gave that breakdown of
I even wrote a small article on it, and it is coming to my Medium account soon.
Sweet. So that is interesting, right? Because we've seen like Roses and Raskev and some of these other formats that people have given us in the past. I think I have at least 30 different acronyms in terms of how to structure a prompt that we've seen with previous models. But now, and I think this came directly from OpenAI, it was basically saying, do the goal first, then do the return formatting in the next one, then do any sort of warning instructions, as in like point stuff out, and then do the context at the very end, which I found interesting, because I usually always do my formatting feedback stuff on the very end of the prompt. But it seems like now this is sort of the new way to go about it. I do like this goal directive thing at the beginning. I think that's a good way to prime stuff, even just like talking about the target audience, like what is this for? It makes sense to put that at the beginning. But then it's interesting that all the context goes at the end. But it also makes sense, because a lot of the times we'll give it. So a lot of the times when we do like article formatting or whatever, we'll go to Perplexity first. We'll do initial research, and then we'll copy that as sort of a context dump in there, where we're just like, so here's the context that you can operate in, but then I want it formatted like this, and I want to turn that into a Twitter thread or whatever, and it'll work within that sort of context that you make available to that. So I think that's an interesting way to deal with that. And
before this, I was also doing the same thing like you did. Like I was always giving the context before, and then what the goal, and then the what I expect. But that is different. That changed with this O1, and that I think the O1 is still the best LLM I tested until today. Because
I think O3 Mini is actually pretty good, pretty close. So if we give this to
pretty
O3
good,
Mini,
but
we'll get there.
I heavily tested, like in the last 20 days, I heavily tested O3 Mini and also O1. O1 is still the best, still for me at least. Is really doing good one. The result, you have this feeling like someone real person is sitting behind your desktop and thinking and doing all reasoning. Although they call it reasoning, I don't think that it is the reasoning that our brains are doing, but it is because the word reason is I don't think we don't. I understand that totally differently, but it really does good job. So O3 Mini is also doing an amazing job. And
I think it depends on like how complex the query is. I think O3 Mini for most stuff is pretty advanced. Like a lot of people I think have said the trade-off in terms of time is worth over O1. I personally, having compared it with the O1 Pro mode, I don't know. I don't see it delivering that much more quality. I think I get most of what I need from O3 Mini these days. So that is interesting, right? Where they're still kind of charging for that Prime model and saying it's so much better. But and
we even covered more. I think we have to here plug in our. So in terms of prompting, maybe I yesterday and the day before yesterday, I shared a couple of posts about prompting on my X account, which is linking to my Medium articles. So I basically do not write a lot recently on X. I publish my Medium articles and I'm linking them there on X. So people really still like. I think the desire for more prompts on many channels really show that people need more prompts, like prompting techniques, which you did excellent job, Leonard, in our webinar last year, which is we are again planning to update it. You covered almost all prompting techniques that any student and researcher would need to consider. Of course, there will be some updates there as well, but they are still intact. They are still relevant. And if anyone to learn these techniques, these prompting techniques, anyone can scan this code you see on our screen now. And
on your side,
yes, I think it's here. And we covered also 15 different tools, which we think are the useful ones for academic research and similar stuff, again, in the same webinar. So we will update it soon. Just if you want to check this webinar, scan this code and go to the webinar page. And if you like it, let us know. And of course, you have a new conference coming up, Leonard. Maybe a couple of words about it, and then we wrap up today's episode.
That sounds good. Yeah, thanks. So I'll be giving a keynote at the Litmaps conference, so you can see that QR code there as well.
Yes, again here.
If you're interested in that, it's completely free. Feel free to sign up for that. And I'll be talking a little bit more about the role of researchers in a post-AI world. Do we even need researchers with deep research and whatnot anymore? But that'll be fun. And if you like seeing me speak, that'll be a good opportunity to do that. It's just a couple of weeks away. I'm excited to be giving a keynote at that free conference for people. And yeah, if you're interested in Litmaps, there's this 30% off code that I was giving people that I I don't know if I can find
I received that in your
in there.
newsletter as well.
There we go. Yeah. So if you're in my newsletter, you'll get that Leonard 30.
Yes.
You 30% off of that thing, of lit maps as well. So that could be interesting if you're interested in that. But of course, you know, up to you. Feel free. We're not really doing a lot with that. This is an affiliate link though. So if you click in on that, there's a small kickback that gets back to us. But yeah, the conference is completely free, so you can definitely
So I will join for sure.
check that out. Exactly.
To
It's
listen to
online
you.
from anywhere in the world. Should be fun. And I'm smelling a little bit of lunch here, so we should probably set
For
up
you, it's lunchtime,
reason,
and for me, it's a dinner
lunchtime.
time.
Exactly. So it was fun to just do a short catch up here. Hopefully, some people got some useful news out of that. And we'll be back soon enough. I'll actually be traveling next week, so I don't know if we can manage the next 2 weeks actually travel, but maybe at a different time because I'll be on European time. See if that works out, and then we'll be back at it and talk more about AI developments. Thanks so
And
much.
if you have any comments or questions, please ask us in the comments. Check our social media channels on different channels we have, and we will be definitely happy to answer them.
Yes.
See you
that sounds
next
good.
time.